Welcome Pisces to your November 2019 reading. I'm Jenny Florence. Guys, welcome to this really wonderful community that we're building here. Welcome back to those of you who are already subscribed, following, liking, sharing. Thank you for all of that, but thank you for being a part of this growing community. I am loving the way you are with such openness and integrity, sharing your journeys, sharing your experiences, giving each other feedback, giving me feedback. It's really magical to experience that level of support in an online community. It's a privilege to do the readings for you guys. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. For those of you that are new to my channel, I'm Jenny Florence, and I do a lot of free stuff in the world. I'm really dedicated to supporting people in learning to walk. It's walking that pathway of the spiritual warrior with awareness, with integrity, and that's really what's happening here. I'm seeing it in the people who are already connected to my readings, and I have to say it's awesome. I only started posting readings earlier in the year, not even, well, May I think it was. I've been reading cards forever. Anyway, I'm not going to digress too much into me and my stuff, but guys, just welcome, and do check out the information box if you want to know any more about me, about the free resources I offer, and I always give a free private reading to one of my subscribers as well, so just check out that stuff there. Guys, we're going to be drawing from the runes first, and then interestingly enough, I was dowsing the cards. We'll be using a lot of different packs because this is a big monthly reading, but this pack came up trumps as the first one. It's a pack that really focuses on the energy of relationship and of the people that are kind of with you and around you, the dynamics that are going on. So we'll be drawing from these cards as soon as we've drawn our runes. So let's dive in. Okay, our first rune. We have the rune of defense. Now this is an interesting energy because this rune says that it's like you develop an aversion to any kind of conduct in people that doesn't really resonate with you. You know, when you get a little bit tetchy, frustrated with people, you can see they're not kind of walking a particularly good path, but they may be completely oblivious to it. I mean, either way, it's not our responsibility to try and raise somebody else's awareness, but that there'll be a frustration or a slight irritation around people that aren't really kind of, you can just kind of see them, an aversion is the best way I can describe it. Very interesting because it also says, it can highlight the difficulties that we experience within ourselves when we start a whole new phase of life or a new project or a new cycle of life, because we often notice things. We're quite sensitive, we're highly attuned to what's going on around us, including the energy of those around us as well. We can also, though, in the same light, become highly attuned to our own energy. We are deciders as well as doers. What we decide, what we think about, what we intend, the decisions that we make today are creating the shape of our future tomorrow. This rune speaks of all of those things. Okay, wow. That one leapt out really easily. We have the rune of movement. This speaks of new attitudes, new life, sometimes new dwelling places, literally physically moving. It speaks of gradual development, nothing sudden, just the increased momentum of something improving. It speaks of the bettering of any situation. So lovely energy to come along with the defense. It's almost as if maybe your heightened awareness and sensitivity get processed into a movement forwards that allows things to improve. And I'm going to say allows you to get a more grounded take on where you are in some way. That's the kind of message that I'm hearing, but we'll see what else comes through. We have two further runes. now, we have the rune of opening, renewed clarity, the dispelling of darkness, magical energy, because it's really moving things forwards, not in a goal-orientated, sort of human-centric, I want to go from A to B and I'm going to get to B really quickly kind of way. It's like an illumination. It's an understanding that it's like changes that come from that they come from within. It's like there's a shift within that allows you to then potentially even change direction or make changes or follow something through. But those changes come from, it's like from the inside out, as opposed to the outside world creating things that cause us a problem, and we therefore change. It's the changes come from the inside out, so it's as though we've initiated the changes very often. Now, the rune of constraint is interesting because this is a rune of necessity. And this rune says that it speaks of the obstacles that we sometimes create for ourselves, as well as obstacles that show up on the outside. It asks you to work with the shadow. It asks you to learn to laugh at any setbacks, to recognise that if there is a setback, it could well be actually a message of guidance. It might be telling you something important. It's very interesting, this lineup of runes. I feel as though I'm just connecting into the astrology. So we're now in the Mercury retrograde phase of November. We're going to be with this Mercury retrograde until the 20th, and then in the shadow for a week or two after. Traditionally, we know that Mercury retrograde energy tends to mean that things don't always run smoothly. And it's almost like our response to things that don't run smoothly is that we feel as though we're not getting from A to B quickly enough, or things aren't working out. If we can centre ourselves and kind of laugh at things as a setback, but look for the learning in every experience, then slowly but surely clarity comes to us. There is, as I said, there is a gradual bettering of any situation here that leads to greater awareness. But I think the flavour of the month is that you may feel as if life is sort of, either life is restricting you or some attitude within you is restricting you. You're trying to push through something within yourself that maybe is one of those familiar old patterns. I'm going to say the ones that we all have. It's just such a human thing. I just truly don't think that any of us don't have them. And I suppose part of our soul's evolution in this lifetime, you know, moving to spaces of greater awareness and greater consciousness, is to really, really identify those patterns and work through them. But I do think we have them. I'm kind of chuckling because I just think it's such a human thing, and you know, I just notice within myself and in all of the people I work with and come into contact with, how apparent it is that we are on this continual flow of working through stuff somehow. It's just that often our attitude to working through stuff, to our growth, will also change how that feels. You know, are we embracing that growth? Are we embracing the lessons, or do we just constantly feel like it's hard work? I will also say sometimes it really does feel hard work, so it swings in roundabouts. But again, being able to laugh at life, laughing at the setbacks, recognising that they are often very good information, is actually quite a bonus in terms of navigating life, I think. So let's draw from this tarot pack. As I said, these cards tend to show us the energy and the dynamics of relationships that are around us. Okay. Wow, guys, we've got two very powerful cards here. We have integrity and we have abundance. Followed by, oh goodness me, the King of Fire and the Queen of Water. Actually, that is what we're going to do from this pack for the moment. We will be drawing a lot more cards, but I'm hearing that's all that we need to read from this pack at this precise moment in this reading. We may draw more. So guys, let's talk through each of these cards before we then draw more for clarification from another pack. First of all, integrity. This card speaks of honour. It connects actually into this rune of defence, where we develop an aversion to conduct that doesn't resonate with us. The card of integrity is about character, values, morality, not being sensitive to injustice. It's about ethics, what matters to you, and standing up for those values. So it's interesting, I sort of almost feel as though there may be someone around you in this month who causes that aspect of you to be niggled a little bit. We will draw more cards for clarity. The card of abundance is interesting because sitting side by side, this card asks you to be conscious in the way that you live. It asks you to have faith. Don't lose sight of faith. Sometimes if stuff is around us, or even stuff from our history is raised and we feel like there's an injustice that we haven't kind of been able to properly process. We couldn't talk to someone because they were unable to, to sit and listen to us. If there's a residue of something, this card asks you not to lose faith. It literally says that complete trust is required. And it also asks you to go within and work out your own goals and your own reasons for doing anything. Again, slow, steady progress. And this rune of renewed clarity, dispelling darkness. I often think of this rune as the rune of self-responsibility, self-awareness. So there's quite a powerful aspect to this reading in terms of you managing the feelings that rise when you can see that things aren't okay. We don't want to react and kind of almost put fuel on the fire, but we don't want to let it go either. And I think that's quite a tricky place to find ourselves. It's the kind of flavour that's here. Now, the King of Fire is an inspirational energy, vital, powerful. It recognises as well that every leader is part of a team. A team cannot function without every single person in it. I had a lovely conversation with a friend not long ago. She actually works as an extra in various films. And she was speaking about, obviously the sort of like the mega famous people, the actors who have the key roles, and how it's really obvious when some of them walk in and will connect with everyone in the room, even if they need to get into role. And she said it's really clear that they have such an appreciation that even if your part is really, really small, their part wouldn't exist without your part. It really is this recognition of something, of every single person having their part to play. And that every single piece of the jigsaw puzzle is important to the whole. It's the kind of flavour of this energy. Now, sometimes it means that somebody comes into your world who brings you that clarity. I'm also going to say sometimes we can see that, going back to this rune of constraint, the obstacles we create for ourselves as well as those that come in from the outside. Again, even if someone outside of us causes us a problem, it can sometimes be exactly that sharpens our values and allows us to see clearly. So it's quite an interesting dynamic around. But as I said, I feel as though you are being, I won't say confronted, but maybe that is the right word, but with aspects of life that don't resonate with you, and you're needing to navigate your way through that. Then we have this card, which, guys, I think is you, the Queen of Water. That's your energy. We'll draw more cards to clarify this. But this is your energy. Trust your feelings. Remember that your vulnerability is actually your strength. I mean, she is emotional. She's empathic. She's sensitive. She's highly attuned to energy. See, I am actually getting quite a clear message that's coming through in relation to these cards. I was curious as to whether this was someone coming in to your world, and it may be. Actually, I think you're being requested to navigate through your emotions, listen to what you feel, sense your way through the month, and yet simultaneously hold your boundaries, own your leadership, have a voice. It's this paradoxical position of working out how to navigate around people or circumstances where maybe things aren't entirely ethical and you are needing to be able to have a voice and say so. Otherwise it will just sit within you and irritate like mad, and lead to kind of resentment and all sorts of challenges. Alternatively, we don't want to kind of lash out and be reactive to that either. It's as though you're having to negotiate something of that. We'll draw from one of the other tarot packs, see what shows up, and we'll draw some cards for each of these cards, I think. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, this is interesting. So first of all, we have Dominion. Dominion is about having control over yourself, as it were, being in charge of yourself. Okay, guys, so very powerful cards, Dominion and the card of Cruelty. Let's just talk these through in terms of integrity. Now, the card of Cruelty doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is being cruel to you. Sometimes it can mean that, but that's quite rare. It's more likely to mean that you are cruel to yourself, that you're being too tough on yourself. It could even mean that you are, because you're struggling with, you're trying to work through something or process it, and you're criticizing yourself in some way for not being able to just get it perfectly right all the time. I feel as though you have some kind of dilemma. And it's not a dilemma, it doesn't feel like it's abrupt. It feels like it's almost like this sort of awakening, this, as I said, aversion to things that don't resonate with you. And I'm going to say I think some of you aren't quite sure how to handle that. But it's an amazing opportunity. That's what I want to say to you. Connecting into the Mercury retrograde energy as well. Mercury retrograde allows us to pause, to reflect. It can bring disruption, but those disruptions allow us to become master of ourselves, master of our own reactions and our own responses. So Mercury retrograde for me is always a time of learning in some way, shape or form. We'll draw more cards and then we'll look at the collective of them and again draw from another pack too. Okay, we have the card of Truce. I'm just going to sit these sort of here because I want to draw two cards for every one of these cards. But I just make sure we're still in camera. Yes, we are. Great. In that case, I think we can do this. We'll slide that over. We're still in. There we go. It'll be cool. It's just we are going to draw quite a few more cards yet. The card of Truce says that underneath the surface calm, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of passion. Don't be fooled by the surface calm. It's a bit like you can stand on the edge of the ocean and it looks like it's flat as a pancake, and yet below there are currents, and those currents are very powerful and very strong. You are being asked to recognise those currents, because if we don't recognise them, that's when they kind of burst out. They burst forth and then we feel like we've reacted to something, and then we kind of regret it afterwards or wish we hadn't, and then we feel our emotions are bad because we've responded in that way. And that's kind of unhelpful, because then that's when we start to criticise ourselves. I want to say just allow anything to emerge that needs to. Ace of Discs, this is a time of powerful new beginnings in some way for you guys. Make sure that we still have everything in camera. I think we do. This is a really powerful reading of new beginnings. There's a new phase in life that you are embarking on. You've initiated it yourself in some way. This hasn't been forced on you by someone else. Okay, yeah, I'm really seeing the energy coming through now. I want to say you're tired. You've worked really, really hard to get to where you are. You're tired. We have now the card of Works. The Knight of Discs. Let me hold these two images up for you so you can see them more clearly. The Knight of Discs is a card of harvest. Guys, you're really close to achieving something, and you've been working at this. It's almost like you are at that pivotal moment where you've invested so much over such a long period of time that you are really quite exhausted. This card of harvest, it actually says that more work is required. Now, when you're exhausted, that's really hard. But it's kind of like, if you think of harvest time for a farmer, they till the ground, they sow the seeds, they nurture, they cultivate, they water, they look after, they work. But harvest time means you have to find that energy to bring in the harvest, to find a completion. This is this energy of slow and gradual movement, bettering of any situation. Things are moving forwards and you are being called to have faith. Again, this wonderful card of abundance. Literally, complete trust is required. You need to see this through, I want to say, or allow yourself just to reap the rewards of whatever it is in your personal world that you have been investing in, because the rewards are coming. It's just, I'm going to say that you're pretty shattered and you may not be feeling like it, but that is the energy here. And this wonderful card, Three of Discs, works. This card says that, again, it talks of slow and steady progress, but it does say that the outcome, the goal, is kind of assured. It offers an assurance of the goal being achieved. It's just that you are still needing to work, and it's hard when you're exhausted. It's hard when you've been investing and investing and investing. Even though you know you're on track, it's kind of like that catches up with you at some point. Guys, I want to sort of say, could you cut yourselves some slack? I'm really getting the message of this card of cruelty now. I don't think it's even just like an inner critic. It may be for some of you. I think it's more that feeling of, because it's not moving forwards or because you haven't consolidated the final goal, it's almost as though despite all the work that you've done, you somehow don't feel as though it's going to work out. It's kind of like I should be further ahead than I am. It's like you planted an acorn and it hasn't yet turned into an oak tree. And you're feeling like it's never going to happen. And have you got the energy to persevere? You are being asked to continue. And there is a card of assurance here. Complete trust, complete faith. Cut yourself some slack, guys. Seriously. Yeah, changes are coming. Changes are emerging. Wonderful, the Death card. Wonderful energy of renewal, of rebirth, of entering that phase of the new. Yeah, renewed clarity out of darkness into light. But it's just that it feels as though things are constrained at the moment. And, maybe obstacles are feeling as though they're being put in your way outside of yourself. Maybe some of those obstacles are within you. Whether they are without or within, it's like, I think you're needing to be reassured here that although, yes, you do still have work to do, there's an assurance that that work is going to pay off. We have this wonderful emergence. Wonderful emergence. And then we have this gorgeous, stunning energy of the card of prudence. So, guys, prudence is a card, it's the tree of life. This requires nurture. Okay, every flower on this tree is surrounded and protected by a leaf. It's like protecting a wonderful little seedling from the frost. You bring it in or you put some kind of wrapping over it so it doesn't get damaged. This says something very new and very beautiful is emerging in your life, within you. Under the Death card, external circumstances, I would say in your external world. But I want to say you have worked hard internally to create the shift that has made it possible for your external world to begin to reflect those inner changes. Change is coming. And it's coming because there is something very new that is coming from the inside out. And this is where you have this aversion to things that are not full of integrity. You're becoming aware, you're noticing stuff, you have a heightened awareness. I'm also going to say for some of you guys, and this is very much a Pisces thing, you've had Neptune in your sign. Neptune is the planet of illumination. we can get these incredible downloads of phenomenal awareness, and yet simultaneously we can feel completely overwhelmed sometimes by it. It's as though we can gain clarity, but there's so much information coming. We feel like we're sort of knocked off our feet and we're swept out to sea. So that's the kind of flavour and energy that's around. But you are coming through this and you are emerging. There's reassurance here. Something very new and very beautiful is emerging from within you. Lovely, lovely energy. I'm going to draw now from one of the other tarot packs. This is interesting. Choices, particularly in relationship. But this is, again, choices with awareness, okay? It's like you see clearly. You gain the clarity you need to make choices. I'm going to say for some of you, there is a need to, I want to slightly say maybe, you move something forwards. There's an element of flavour of, again, constraint of restriction. And for some of you, that may be surfacing specifically within relationship. For others, it may be in your working environment. It may be, again, you're working alongside people who don't really hold the same values or the same attitude as you. But you do have choices available to you. And you are asked to kind of, it's like take charge of your awareness so that you can work out what those choices are. You don't have to rush into them though, either, I'm going to say. We have a card of new opportunity here. New opportunities, yeah, especially at work. Sometimes, you know, small amounts of money come available, resources become available to you. Now, sitting under the abundance card, the abundance card also speaks about having an attitude of gratitude. If we think energetically that our resonance is what we're then attracting to us, then if we centre ourselves in a space of gratitude for everything that we have right now, we're actually going to bring in and attract more of what we desire, more of what we need. I do want to say cut yourself some slack. Take it easy. Look after yourselves this month. Don't be trying to push something forward. There's a flavour of allowing something to unfold with an appreciation above and beyond anything of yourselves, of the work you've put in. I want you to stop and smell the roses. I want you to stop and acknowledge. I really want to ask you to do this. The reading invites it. Acknowledge how far you've come. Acknowledge the work you've had to put in to get to where you are, okay? This is an interesting card. So this is contentment. It's contentment within relationship. It's contentment. There's a sense of stability about this, which is quite interesting. What I also hear is there's a duality, and it's quite interesting because it's quite noticeable in this reading. Do you stay in a place where you feel safe and contented? Or do you make choices and move on into something else? You know, sometimes we can stay with the safer option. It may not be perfect. You know, people around us aren't necessarily behaving as we'd like them to be, but there's a lot of safety in our position. There's a lot to be said for contentment, as long as we make those choices literally with from a position of awareness and choice. You know, if we accept a restriction, that's great, that's fine. We have choices. There's a lot to be said for staying as we are sometimes. But we need to take an ownership of it and then not be kind of miffed or fed up because we feel stifled by an environment. It's kind of like, there's a sort of a flavour of this around it. So this is really interesting because, again, this card speaks of clarity, of really seeing people's situations for who they really are. And it does allow you to make very empowered choices. There's a lot of, I'm going to say, a lot of windows of opportunity, I think, are coming your way. And November, guys, you know, Pisces rising, moon in Pisces, well, anyone with any number of planets in Pisces, or if you're cross-watching and you have a Pisces near you and connected to you, you're facing a lot of choices here, and cut yourself some slack. Slow, steady progress, but allow yourself to make decisions. It's like, hold your boundaries, but trust your feelings. Allow yourself to navigate this month in a way that recognises that everything that comes your way is actually going to be very valuable and very helpful information for you. Okay, so I'm now just going to draw from the Art of Manifestation cards. Well, the energy that's coming out of these cards is incredible. They're literally leaping out. I'm having trouble holding them. So let's try and... There's so many coming out, I'm not able to kind of see which ones I'm... Ah, there we go. Right, okay, so our first card. Our first card is Persevere. It's quite interesting because I was speaking exactly this message earlier. Persevere. Each of these cards has a message on them. They're very clear. They give a very clear guidance and direction. Who would have thought that a humble acorn could grow into a mighty oak tree? But of course, this takes time. Whatever you are involved in, this card brings a message of reassurance. Your hard work and continued effort and dedication will come to fruition. You are asked to persevere and to trust. Remember, complete trust. Okay, this is interesting. Guys, what blocks do you have within yourself? We spoke about removing any obstacles that you have within you. You know, sometimes obstacles are presented in our external world. Sometimes they come from within us. This card is the card of lack. And again, I will read you the message. Leading a spiritual life does not mean living in lack. This card asks you to release any underlying beliefs that you may hold regarding entitlement and worthiness that may be blocking your ability to receive. When you have an abundance of wealth, both inner and outer, you will have an abundance to give and to share with others. Cut yourself some slack, guys. Allow yourselves to believe in the possibility of whatever it is that you desire. If your situation isn't as you would like it to be, allow that to emerge. Cut yourself some slack. Let it happen in its own time. The bettering of any situation, it's going to bring renewed clarity. There is a feeling maybe of frustration. I almost have a... I don't know if you guys ever experience this, but I call it restless legs, you know, or impatient legs. It's like I get this sort of energy of, you know, I want something to happen, frustration, something isn't quite right, and I get this energy, and it sits definitively in my legs. I've always had it. I can go way back and remember it. And that's what I'm actually feeling right now as I'm doing this reading. And I think there is this sort of something in you that would like to burst forth and change. Something's not working as quickly as you'd like it. Cut yourself some slack. Relax. Get yourself involved in self-care. Look after yourselves. Treat yourselves. Okay, guys. We have a card, forgiveness of others. Again, yeah, if people are, I'm just going to say, if people are pissing you off, to be quite honest with you, don't let that frustration get to you. They're on their own pathway. The message on this card says, forgiveness does not mean that something bad that happened to us was or is okay. Forgiveness means that we choose to move beyond the experience and to release any ongoing need for retribution. In doing so, we no longer need to keep the memory of what happened alive within us. This choice reinstates our entitlement to be in charge of our own lives. Pretty powerful, guys. Pretty powerful. This is about getting yourself back in charge of your own life, of your own choices, but in this instance through awareness. A combination of awareness and management of your emotional responses to whatever situation has been going on around you. Oh, I love miracles. We then have the card of miracles. We tend to perceive miracles only when our personal desires are met. And yet, when we look back, almost all of us will be able to recall a crisis or a challenge that ultimately proved to be a miraculous turning point and an extraordinary gift. This card asks you to see the miracles that surround you right now and in every situation. That's so the energy of this reading. That's the paradox for me. In one sense, I have this sort of my restless legs, my impatience that I'm experiencing, as if there is a restriction or things that I really want to, break free from or challenge. Simultaneously, there's something magnificently beautiful emerging. There's this feeling of something. I almost feel like I know what I want. That's the energy that's flowing through me. I mean, I'm not a Pisces, but I'm experiencing this feeling of knowing what I want, and it just feels like a pause along the way when I'd like it to be moving. It is a paradox. It's as though there is a vision, and yet perhaps parts of that vision aren't entirely clear yet. You're still needing to, information is needing to emerge and surface, to come to light so that you can see clearly and make decisions. So guys, the cutting yourself some slack is really present for me in reading this. I'm going to draw some astrology cards just to wrap up this reading, guys, for this month. Okay, well, so we have the card of lunar eclipse, change, powerful energy. I think we know change is with you, it's happening, it's coming. We also drew Neptune. As I said, very powerful Neptunian influence around for you guys. Sacrifice. Things aren't necessarily moving forwards. You are having to evaluate, to consider others. It may even be that others' needs are overshadowing your own, but I think that is going to change, guys. It's just that it needs to emerge. Wonderful. It is going to emerge. I think this is the energy we have. 8th house, endings, beginnings. I want to say it's that sort of complete trust. Everything is emerging as it should. Obstacles, restrictions, some of them for some of you guys, they're coming in on the outside. They're people's attitudes, people's, stuff that's causing you to feel like you want to break free from something and move forwards. You have that vision. For others, it's a biggie to step out of something that actually feels quite steady and quite comfortable. But it may also not really be quite fulfilling you. It's not really offering you the potential. But I really want you to trust that the information you need to know, because some of you guys will make a choice ultimately to stay in a safer, contained, contented place. It may be right for you. Others are really dying to burst forth and move forwards. There aren't any wrongs and rights. We need to make those choices. What matters is that we make those choices from a space of personal awareness, and we make those, we own our choices basically from a place of self-awareness, from a place of integrity that honours and recognises and appreciates all aspects of the jigsaw puzzle. And I need to say, guys, it feels like the most beautiful jigsaw puzzle here today in terms of colour, energy. Cut yourself some slack, take it easy, allow things to emerge. Don't react, just listen to the information your senses and feelings are bringing you. Guys, you have worked very, very hard to get to where you are. It's like you've climbed almost to the top of that mountain, and I think some of you are having a few doubts because it's not happening. I'm going to say persevere. For some of you who want to set up a base camp there, it's a new place to be. Go for it. It's about persevering and recognising your own choices, forgiving others, allowing yourself to have what you actually fundamentally deserve, and knowing that miracles are all around us. Even the challenging stuff, it often proves to be a great awakener for us. Guys, so much love to you, and yeah, do please check in on the sort of additional free resources that I offer, and if you want to be in the running for a private reading, do please subscribe, or maybe subscribe anyway. It supports this channel, it supports this community, and it's wonderful that we are building this community, I guess, of spiritual warriors. You know, we're all on this pathway and we're in it to support one another. So much love to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you either for the next big monthly readings or some of the in-between ones that I do. So much love, guys. So much love.